The gym had emptied hours ago, leaving only the echo of clanging weights and the faint hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. I stepped out into the cool evening air, the crispness a relief after the oppressive warmth of the workout room. My bag sagged heavily over one shoulder, a mixture of sweat-damp clothes, water bottles, and the stubborn remnants of my determination. The streets were quiet, almost deserted, and the city's hum felt distant, muted by the late hour. I was halfway to my car when I noticed them, two women, gracefully moving toward the exit. Their presence was unassuming yet magnetic. Both were in their early 40s, carrying themselves with a confidence that didn't demand attention, but effortlessly drew it. One had a cascade of dark hair brushing her shoulders. The other's golden strands caught the remaining glow of the streetlights. They were physically attractive in a way that spoke of care and self-respect, not overt vanity. Their gym attire clung comfortably to their forms, casual yet elegant, as though movement and poise were second nature. "Hey, you look like you could use a ride," the woman with dark hair said, her tone easy, friendly, completely unexpected. The offer hung in the air, and I felt a flicker of hesitation. Was it safe? Polite? Socially acceptable to accept a ride from two women I had barely spoken to? My mind raced, but the exhaustion of the workout weighed heavier, and I found myself nodding before I could overthink. They smiled, a brief, knowing exchange passing between them. There was warmth in that moment, an unspoken understanding. Their smiles were not flirtatious, but there was a gentle curiosity, a spark of genuine kindness. The way the woman with golden hair brushed a loose strand behind her ear, without noticing me noticing, made my chest tighten unexpectedly. As we walked toward their car, I became aware of every little sensory detail. The cool air brushed against my face, carrying faint scents of the gym, rubber mats, lemon-scented sanitizer, but mixed subtly with the women's own perfumes, light and airy, almost floral. The click of their heels against the pavement was steady and reassuring, a rhythm that oddly matched the anxious flutter in my stomach. I noticed how they moved with ease, effortlessly confident, yet not intimidating. They talked quietly between themselves as if I were not there, yet I felt included, the rhythm of their voices wrapping around the space like a gentle invitation. When we reached the car, I hesitated at the door, fumbling with my bag strap, conscious of their presence so close. There was no rush, no insistence, only a patient waiting that felt unexpectedly comforting. The night seemed to stretch, elongated by anticipation and subtle curiosity. I realized then that something about this ordinary, quiet moment, the late-night air, the unexpected company, the weight of the day falling away, was already leaving a mark on me. By the time I slid into the back seat, the first stirrings of intrigue had begun. It was not lust, not infatuation, but a subtle, almost imperceptible pull, an awareness that tonight might be unlike any other night I had experienced alone, and that this unexpected offer of kindness could be the beginning of something quietly transformative. The interior of the car was warm, a comforting contrast to the chill of the night outside. As I slid into the back seat, the soft hum of the engine and the faint scent of leather and lightly scented air freshener immediately wrapped around me. The women exchanged a brief, subtle glance in the front seats, smiles flickering like quiet acknowledgement, before one of them shifted gears, and we began to move through the empty streets. The conversation started casually, tentative at first. Comments about the gym, the late hour, the weather, all the usual small talk that somehow never felt mundane in their presence. There was a rhythm to their voices, warm and melodic, with just a trace of amusement or curiosity in the pauses. I found myself listening more than speaking, noticing details I might have overlooked otherwise. The way the driver's fingers rested lightly on the steering wheel, graceful and sure. The passenger's hand brushing her hair back, exposing the delicate line of her jaw. Despite the normalcy of the conversation, the silence between remarks was just as telling. In those pauses, I became acutely aware of proximity and presence. My bag brushed against my leg, and I realized how close my knee was to the edge of the front seat. Their subtle body language, the slight lean toward each other, the way the passenger occasionally glanced in the rearview mirror, made my chest tighten in a strange, unfamiliar way. It wasn't discomfort, not exactly. It was alertness, curiosity, and a growing sense of connection that didn't need words to define it. A song played softly on the radio, one that neither of us seemed to have requested, but it wrapped around the space perfectly. I caught myself listening not only to the lyrics, but to how their expressions softened when a familiar note played, how they hummed quietly in unison without looking at each other. It was intimate, unspoken, and yet entirely platonic, though my awareness of their presence grew with every passing second. The road ahead was quiet, streetlights blurring in warm amber streaks through the windows. The hum of tires against asphalt was steady, almost hypnotic. I noticed the subtle warmth radiating from the seats, the way their perfume lingered in the car in faint trails, each inhalation pulling a small, unexplainable flutter in my stomach. When passing objects, like a water bottle or a stray gym towel, our fingers brushed briefly, lingering fractionally longer than necessary. Each accidental touch felt significant, though neither of us acknowledged it directly. In that shared space, time seemed to bend. The city, the streets, the late-night stillness, all faded into a gentle background. My attention was drawn to their voices, their expressions, the quiet energy of the car itself. I began to notice how safe I felt, how naturally the tension between us was tempered by respect and warmth. It wasn't a rush of passion but a slow, simmering curiosity, a magnetic pull that made me aware of both my own heart and the nuances of theirs. By the time we approached my stop, I realized the car ride had become more than a simple favor. It was a space of subtle observation, a quiet intimacy that left me feeling seen, almost profoundly, in ways I hadn't anticipated. And though nothing overt had happened, I could feel the tension, the unspoken awareness of presence, proximity, and possibility, settling softly between us, laying the foundation for whatever might come next. As the car moved through the quiet streets, the earlier casual chatter had settled into a calm, almost reflective silence. The glow of streetlights washed over their faces intermittently, revealing small, intimate expressions, the way one woman's eyes softened when recalling a memory, or how the other's lips curved subtly when listening intently. It was as if the night itself had slowed, allowing space for moments that might otherwise pass unnoticed in the rush of daily life. The conversation gradually shifted from superficial topics to more personal reflections. One of the women, her voice steady but gentle, shared a recent challenge she had faced at work, a setback that had tested her patience and resilience. Her hands rested lightly on her lap, but there was a subtle tension in the movement, a quiet vulnerability that didn't go unnoticed. The other nodded, her expression tender, a hand brushing a stray strand of hair behind her ear, as though reinforcing support through the smallest gestures. Their comfort with each other made the space between all three of us feel warm, safe, and inclusive. I found myself drawn in, feeling the unusual pull to open up in return. Hesitation lingered at first. I was aware of the age difference, of the social norms, and the unspoken rules, but something about their presence encouraged honesty. I spoke softly about my own recent struggles, the quiet fears and uncertainties that rarely left my inner thoughts. My voice was steadier than I expected, perhaps buoyed by their patient attentiveness. Each shared word seemed to linger in the car, echoing softly against the leather seats and the hum of the engine, giving weight to a moment that could have felt ordinary, but instead felt quietly significant. The atmosphere was thick with subtle, unspoken intimacy. Every small movement became meaningful. The slight lean to hear better, the way their eyes met mine in the rearview mirror and lingered, the occasional brush of fingers as we reached for the same object, a gym towel, a bottle of water. Each touch was fleeting but heavy with resonance, a delicate balance between awareness and restraint. It was in these small gestures that the tension grew, not in words, but in proximity and the nuanced understanding that we were three people sharing more than just a ride home. Outside, the city passed in slow motion. Neon signs blurred gently as we drove past, the occasional car passing by only emphasizing the stillness inside our shared space. The soft scent of their perfumes mixed with the faint aroma of my gym bag, creating a sensory imprint I could not shake. The car had become a vessel for something intimate yet unspoken, a safe zone for honesty, reflection, and the quiet stirrings of curiosity that neither of us fully acknowledged. By the time we neared a quiet turn in the road, I realized how deeply I was attuned to them. not just to their words, but to the rhythm of their voices, the subtleties of their expressions, the warmth radiating from the seats beside me. It wasn't desire in the conventional sense. It was something more profound, an emotional resonance, an awareness that this shared moment had altered the ordinary flow of my evening. And though the ride was far from over, the seed of connection had already been planted, delicate yet undeniable, leaving a lingering warmth that promised the night would hold more than a simple favor. By the time the car approached the quieter part of the city, my street, dimly lit and still, the energy inside the vehicle had shifted. What had begun as polite small talk and gentle curiosity had grown into something heavier, more tangible, yet entirely unspoken. I felt it in the way my chest tightened when I noticed their subtle glances, the soft pauses in conversation that seemed deliberate, almost deliberate enough to linger. There was an unspoken awareness between all of us, a quiet acknowledgement of the night's intimacy, yet tempered by restraint. I hesitated as my stop neared, a strange tension rooting me in place. Part of me wanted to leave, to retreat to the familiar safety of my apartment and normal routine. But another, quieter part, the part one hadn't recognized until this moment, wanted to linger, to savor the warmth and subtle energy that had grown in the small, enclosed space of the car. It wasn't urgency or neediness. It was a slow, simmering pull, a desire to remain in proximity to these two women whose presence had unexpectedly grounded me. They seemed to notice it too, though neither of them said anything. A glance exchanged in the rearview mirror carried a universe of subtle cues, curiosity, awareness, and perhaps even a shared hesitation. The woman in the passenger seat shifted slightly, her elbow brushing against the edge of the console, her fingers lingering near the space where our hands might have touched. It was a fraction of a movement, almost imperceptible, yet my awareness of it sharpened every sense. The driver's hand tapped lightly against her knee, a rhythm that synchronized with my own heartbeat in a way I found unnerving and comforting simultaneously. The silence between words became a language of its own. Each sigh of the tires on the asphalt, each faint click of the turn signal, felt amplified, resonating with the tension inside me. I was hyper-aware of the warmth radiating from their bodies, the faint, lingering scent of perfume mingling with the subtle residual odor of the gym. Every minor gesture, the brushing of a strand of hair behind an ear, the way one adjusted her seat, carried a weight I hadn't anticipated. My mind raced through scenarios. What would it mean to say more, to linger at the moment, to break the social rules that had so carefully defined distance and propriety? But alongside curiosity was restraint. Respect had anchored me, reminding me of the delicate balance between connection and overstepping. I wanted to linger without imposing, to feel the closeness without changing its nature, to acknowledge the magnetic tension while maintaining the warmth and trust that had formed so naturally. By the time we finally slowed at my stop, I felt both relief and regret. The relief of returning to normalcy, and yet the subtle ache of wishing for just a moment more. Another minute in the confined warmth, another glance, another brush of fingers, another opportunity to witness the quiet strength and grace of these women whose presence had unsettled and captivated me simultaneously. As I reached for the door handle, the women exchanged another glance, soft and knowing. Their quiet patience mirrored mine. There was an unspoken agreement. The hesitation wasn't rejection, nor was it certainty. It was simply the acknowledgement of something significant forming, delicate yet undeniable, a slow-burn connection suspended in the night air between us. The car had come to a gentle stop outside my apartment building, a quiet street lit by the soft, amber glow of a few scattered streetlights. The warmth of the vehicle contrasted sharply with the cool night air that seeped in as I opened the door. My gym bag felt heavier now, not just from the contents but from the weight of the evening, the conversations, the subtle touches, the unspoken tension that had grown slowly, almost imperceptibly, over the course of the ride. Neither of the women spoke immediately, their glances briefly meeting in the front seat before flicking to me. There was a quiet hesitation in their smiles, a delicate pause that seemed to stretch in time, holding a tension that was neither awkward nor uncomfortable, but profoundly intimate. I realized in that moment that this goodbye was different from any I had experienced before. It carried with it the weight of possibility, the gentle pull of curiosity, and the subtle ache of wanting to linger just a little longer. The woman in the passenger seat leaned slightly toward me as I gathered my belongings. Her hand brushed my shoulder lightly, not a bold gesture, but a fleeting touch that sent a warm shiver up my spine. It was the kind of touch that communicates steadiness, reassurance, and unspoken understanding all at once. Her eyes held mine for a moment longer than necessary, and I could see the quiet grace in her expression, the kind that spoke of experience, kindness, and a hint of restrained curiosity. The driver turned toward me, a soft smile playing at her lips, and when she reached out, it was to let her fingers graze my forearm as I adjusted the strap of my bag. The contact was fleeting, delicate, yet it lingered in my mind long after the touch had ended. There was no rush to depart, no words to hurry the moment along. Instead, there was patience, a shared recognition that goodbyes could be meaningful precisely because of their restraint. The night air carried the faint aroma of the city, mixed subtly with their perfumes, leaving a sensory imprint that felt almost tangible. The click of the car door shutting behind them reverberated softly, punctuating the silence that followed. I stood on the pavement, feeling the warmth of their presence linger like a shadow, and realized how profoundly ordinary gestures, touching a shoulder, a fleeting glance, a gentle smile, could leave a lasting impression. As they drove away, the soft hum of the engine fading into the distance, I found myself watching longer than necessary, a small smile tugging at my lips. There was no need for words. The night had spoken for us, in touches, glances, and silences. A quiet excitement settled in my chest, not urgency or longing, but the gentle anticipation of future encounters, the subtle knowledge that this connection was real, tangible, and slowly unfolding. Standing there, I realized the true power of the evening wasn't in grand gestures or declarations. It was in the quiet, meaningful moments that had built an emotional bridge between us. The lingering goodbye was more than a farewell. It was an unspoken promise, a seed planted delicately in the night, hinting at warmth, curiosity, and the slow-burn intimacy that had only just begun to grow. The door clicked shut behind me, and the quiet of my apartment swallowed me whole. The night outside seemed distant now, a soft hum beyond the windows, but the warmth of their presence lingered stubbornly in my chest. I dropped my gym bag by the door and leaned against it, closing my eyes for a moment. The memory of the evening, the subtle touches, the fleeting glances, the gentle laughter, played over and over in my mind, each repetition sharpening the details I hadn't fully noticed in the moment. I remembered the brush of one woman's fingers on my forearm, light and almost accidental, yet electric in its simplicity. I recalled the soft warmth of her shoulder beneath my hand and the quiet steadiness of the heartbeat I felt through it. The other's eyes had lingered in the rearview mirror, attentive, curious, yet respectful, and the memory of that gaze made my chest tighten with a mix of longing and admiration. There was no urgency in the moments we had shared, but the tension was unmistakable, a subtle pull, a quiet gravitational force that seemed to draw me toward them even in their absence. Sitting down on the edge of my bed, I ran a hand through my hair, replaying every word, every gesture. I thought about the vulnerability they had shown, the ease with which they had shared fragments of themselves, and the way they had listened when I shared mine. There was a resonance in those moments, a sense of being understood without the need for explanation, a rare emotional intimacy that left me both unsettled and comforted. The connection wasn't loud or overt. It was a soft, persistent hum beneath the surface of my thoughts, growing stronger the longer I let it sit with me. I found myself imagining them in subtle ways, the tilt of a head, the curve of a smile, the gentle grace of a hand moving through the air as they spoke. Desire was there, yes, but it wasn't frantic or shallow. It was curiosity, admiration, and an almost reverent awareness of their presence and experience. Their age was never a barrier. It was part of the allure, the depth and confidence that came with life, lived fully and gracefully. I wanted to know more, to linger in their world just as they had lingered in mine, without rushing, without forcing anything that the night hadn't already started to nurture. Even the smallest details seemed to hold weight. The faint scent of their perfume still clung to my jacket. The memory of their laughter echoed softly, a rhythm that replayed in my chest. My apartment, quiet and dimly lit, suddenly felt charged with anticipation. The gentle ache of unfulfilled curiosity, the subtle thrill of something forbidden yet wholly respectful, and the warmth of having been seen in ways I rarely allowed myself to be. As I stood by the window, looking out at the street where they had driven away, I realized that the night had planted a seed. It wasn't about rushing or about overt romance. It was about awareness, intimacy, and the quiet stirring of desire that respected boundaries while quietly yearning for more. I felt a slow, steady pull toward them, a magnetic curiosity that would linger, shaping my thoughts and emotions in the days to come. The evening had ended, but the connection remained, delicate, potent, and full of promise, a slow-burn fire that flickered just beneath the surface, waiting to grow. The next morning dawned gently, sunlight spilling across the edges of my bedroom blinds and painting soft lines on the floor. The quiet hum of the city outside seemed almost ordinary, yet inside, the warmth of last night lingered, a subtle echo of the connection that had formed. My mind wandered back to the car ride, to their glances, their laughter, the fleeting touches that had left an imprint on my skin and in my memory. It was strange how ordinary objects, a gym bag, a bottle of water, a jacket, now carried the weight of emotion, reminders of moments that had subtly shifted something inside me. I reached for my phone almost instinctively. A small notification blinked, a simple message from one of them, warm and casual. "Thanks again for the company last night. Let's not make it a rare thing." My chest tightened slightly, a mix of delight and the quiet thrill of anticipation. It was casual, yet it carried an unspoken invitation, a recognition that what had begun as an ordinary favor had blossomed into something meaningful. I typed a reply carefully, choosing words that were friendly, respectful, yet tinged with the curiosity and warmth I felt. The memory of their presence returned vividly. I recalled the passenger's gentle hand on my shoulder, the driver's lingering glance in the rearview mirror, the way they had listened, really listened, when I had shared personal thoughts. It was in these moments that the emotional depth of the night had revealed itself, in the quiet attentiveness, the subtle empathy, the slow, simmering connection that had built between us. There had been no need for overt gestures or declarations, just presence, patience, and understanding. By mid-morning, I found myself moving almost automatically, putting on my gym shoes, straightening my bag, preparing to meet them again. There was no rush, no pressure, just a gentle anticipation that felt almost tangible. The slow-burn tension of yesterday had softened into a quiet excitement, a sense that this connection was unfolding naturally, guided by shared curiosity, respect, and emotional intimacy. Even the air outside seemed infused with possibility, the familiar street corners and gym signs now tinged with memories of last night's laughter and quiet glances. When I arrived at the gym later that day, they were already there, warming up in their usual manner. Their smiles as they saw me felt like sunlight breaking through a cloudy morning, easy and genuine, carrying all the warmth of last night without needing words. Our conversation began lightly, playful yet thoughtful, yet beneath the surface, there was an awareness of the bond that had begun to grow. Gestures were deliberate but gentle, hands brushing in passing, shared smiles that lingered, the quiet magnetic pull that had sparked during the ride home. In that moment, I realized the significance of what had started as a simple act of kindness. It wasn't about rushing into romance, nor about overt declarations of desire. It was about trust, awareness, and the subtle beauty of connection unfolding naturally. The slow-burn intimacy, the shared glances, the quiet conversations, the fleeting touches, had created something meaningful, grounding, and deeply satisfying. As the day went on, I felt a gentle contentment settle in my chest, a warmth that promised more. More conversations, more shared moments, more quiet intimacy that could grow at its own pace. Last night had ended, yes, but the story was far from over. It had begun, delicately, beautifully, and in a way that felt entirely real, a connection nurtured slowly, respectfully, and fully alive.